to our program on the benefits of landmarking your house. This is the third in a three-part series organized with the Glencoe Preservation Commission. Special thanks go to Peter Van Beckton, chair of the commission, for his energy and initiative. The program is being recorded, as you can see, and will be placed on the library's YouTube channel. We welcome two presenters this evening, Erika Block and Jessica Mavrogenes. Erika Block was appointed to the Glencoe Preservation Commission in 2019. She worked as a planner for the Village of Wilmette for 11 years in the Community Development Department and administered the preservation programs as staff liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission. Erika served on the Executive Board of Directors for Landmarks Illinois as Vice Chairwoman, and in 2020 was named one of the 20 most influential people in preservation by Landmarks Illinois. She's also a member of the Glencoe Advisory Caucus. Jessica Mavrogenes is the founder of Pembroke Group LLC, a consulting firm specializing in construction project management, development advisory, and historic preservation. In her career, she's worked on National Register nominations, local landmark designations, historic resource evaluations, preservation incentive programs, and historic tax credit projects. She's also managed both new construction and historic rehabilitation projects, including work on the Centennial Commitment at the Shed Quarry. Jessica has served on the Glencoe Preservation Commission since 2022. Erika and Jessica, you can take the reins from here.
Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. We're going to be talking about the benefits of landmarking your home. Great. Okay. So this is a little bit of an agenda for today. We're going to cover why preservation matters, understanding historic homes, what landmarking actually means, why homeowners choose landmarking, real Glencoe examples, we're going to have a few case studies, and how to get started.
Thanks, Erika. I'm going to take us through the next stretch of tonight's presentation, starting with why preservation matters. And I want to open with a quote that really frames how we think about this work. It comes from Donovan Ripkema, an economist who spent his career studying the economics of historic preservation through his firm, Place Economics. He says, quote, "Preservation is not about saving the past. It's about building the future," end quote. And I think that line does a lot of work in just a few words. There's a really common assumption that preservation is backward looking, that it's about nostalgia or about freezing a neighborhood exactly as it was at some point in history. What we're actually talking about is intentionally carrying forward the qualities that make a place worth living. The craftsmanship, the character, the sense of continuity between generations, so that those qualities are still here for the people who come after us. Preservation, done well, isn't in tension with the community's future. It's actually one of the ways a community builds the future thoughtfully rather than by accident. Keep that framing in mind as we go through the rest of tonight's presentation. What actually makes Glencoe feel like Glencoe? And take a second and picture our village in your mind. What comes up? For some people, it's not just the lake or the ravines or the downtown, it's the homes. It's turning down a street and seeing a real mix of architectural periods and styles next to each other. Prairie school homes, colonial revivals, mid-century modern designs, homes built by architects whose names carry real weight in architectural history, and some that don't. High-style architecture and vernacular too. That variety and the quality of it is part of what makes Glencoe distinct from so many other communities. That character isn't guaranteed to stick around. Homes get torn down, renovations do not respect the original design intent. Character gets eroded, usually without anyone intending harm, just because there wasn't a framework in place to think it through. So when we ask what makes Glencoe feel like Glencoe, what we're really asking is, what are we going to do intentionally to make sure that answer is still true for future generations? Okay, with that question in mind, what makes Glencoe feel like Glencoe? I want to spend just a few more minutes on why preservation matters. Preservation isn't just an aesthetic preference. And it isn't only about one individual house. It's about the cumulative effect of hundreds of decisions made by hundreds of different homeowners over decades. That together shape what it feels like to live here. When it adds up in a positive direction, the whole community benefits. Property values, walkability, that sense of place having a story. When it erodes, it tends to erode quietly, one teardown at a time, until people look up one day and wonder what changed. So continuing to set the stage, what actually makes a building historic? There are two core concepts here, significance and integrity. Let's start with significance. A building can be significant for a number of different reasons, and it doesn't have to check every box. Any one of these can be enough. It can be significant architecturally, designed by a notable architect or a representative of a particular style or building. It can be significant because of the people associated with it, someone historically notable who lived or worked here. And it can be significant because of events that happen there. It can be significant because of craftsmanship, the quality and rarity of materials and construction techniques used. And it can be also significant because of neighborhood context, the way a building contributes to the character of a block or a street around it, even if the building isn't itself individually architecturally remarkable. The second concept, integrity, asks a different question. Has the building retained enough of its original features and character that we can still actually read that history in it today? A building can be historically significant on paper and lose its integrity if it's been so heavily altered that none of the original character remains. So we have a couple of examples. The first, the Glencoe train station, designed by Frost and Granger in 1891, and most of you have probably passed this hundreds of times. The second here is 670 Longwood Avenue, built in 1951, which is a prime example of a Tudor revival architectural style. Third here, 1023 Meadow Road, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1915, architecturally significant by architect. And this fourth one here is the St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal Church, designed by Andrews Architects in 1990. And the Preservation Commission specifically found that the church was significant because of its association with the history and culture of Glencoe's Black community, not because of its architectural qualities. So a note about some of the legend going forward, the gold star on the slides where there are photos of buildings and other structures is what is designated as a Glencoe certified landmark, which we're going to be talking about the different designations in a bit. The certified landmark is the highest distinction. H is for honorary landmark, and S is for historically significant. Again, we'll be discussing what those mean as we go forward. If it has a red circle around it, the home has been demolished or is slated for demolition. Preservation work in Glencoe isn't a new initiative. It started in 1985 with a village-wide survey cataloging historically and architecturally significant properties across Glencoe. In 1990, the Preservation Commission was formally established as the body responsible for overseeing this work going forward. In 2012, the village developed a story map, an interactive online tool that lets residents explore the history of homes across the community, which is actually a resource we're going to point you back to later tonight. In 2015, the original survey was updated to reflect current conditions, including demolitions. And in 2022, there was a renaming of the Historic Preservation Commission just to the Preservation Commission, dropping historic. Most recently, this year, just last month, ordinance changes have been adopted and approved for modernization and will be adopted in the new year. This includes rewriting preservation codes, zoning initiatives, permit rebate programs, and a demolition fee dedicated to preservation funding, which we will also discuss later. So the village has about 3,000 homes total, and of those, 308 currently carry some level of historic designation. That works out to a bit over 10% of all homes in the village. And I share that number because it tends to surprise some people. And a lot of people assume that it's a tiny handful of grand, perhaps high style architecture that's designated. And it's actually a much broader and more varied group of homes across a wide range of styles, sizes, and eras. So if you've ever driven or walked past your own house and wondered whether it might qualify, you're absolutely not alone in that question, and there's a real meaningful chance the answer could be yes. So how do you actually figure out whether your house might fit into that group? We like to walk homeowners through this in a simple set of questions. Is your home old enough to be considered historic? Is it architecturally significant in its style or design? Was it designed by an architect of note? Did a historically significant owner ever live there? Does it contribute meaningful to the character of its neighborhood? You don't have to answer yes to all of these questions, but even just one perhaps could qualify your home, and it's a reason to reach out to the Preservation Commission.
All right. So this is an overview of the levels of historic preservation that are out there. So the local, which is Glencoe, the village of Glencoe, has the most protection available to its residents. There are, it's the top level, which would be the designation individually of your home, which is the most protected, which would mean it would be the certified landmark, which is protected by the ordinance. There's an honorary, which is just a recognition in your own community itself. It would mean that the demolition would be extremely unlikely unless there was an economic hardship. Economic hardship means extreme disrepair of the home. But it would mean that for future homeowners, your home would be in its place as it is standing for future homeowners. So who is the person or the group of people who enact this regulation? That would be the Glencoe Preservation Commission. We have some of our members here tonight. And then it would be elevated up to the village board of trustees, who would then make the ultimate approval for the landmarking itself. At the state level, the way that the state would get involved would be if you were considering to pursue a tax freeze. They would then take a look at your application. They would then work with you with the state architect to have documentation of your plans that you would be submitting to them. So that would only be in coordination with them if you were going for the tax freeze option. At the federal level, they have a different regulation option for your house for its designation. And that is through the National Register of Historic Places. And that would be considered listing your home individually on the National Register listing. It is an honorary title. It is published through the federal website, which is through the National Park Service. And they would have the reason for your designation. You can prepare that designation yourself. You could work with a historical consultant, but that would be something that the top tier honor, you can layer it with a local landmark designation. You could also do it separately. There are places, maybe you've been to a community before that has a National Register historic district in their downtown. That would mean by having that overlay district, everyone in that district, whether it's a business or a house that falls into that range, would then have an opportunity to apply for the state level tax freeze without being an individual landmark. And then even if your home is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, it could potentially be demolished, sadly, but it could. That's the big overview of everything. The next is the level of designation. We're breaking it down even more to our micro level, what is in our ordinance. And Justice Cuz can speak on that.
So in Glencoe, as we talked about, there's 3 different levels of designation. At the top is a certified landmark. That's our highest level of local recognition, which currently is 11 homes have that designation. It carries the most protection and is also what typically pairs with the Illinois property tax freeze program, which we're going to talk about later. A certified landmark is protected against demolition. Neither the honorary landmark nor the historically significant are protected against demolition. Next is the honorary landmark, which we have 76 homes with that designation. It is meaningful recognition of the home's history and significance, but it has a different level of review, and there are different levels of a level of review that goes along with that. Then there's historically significant, which covers 221 homes. It's the largest of our 3 categories. Again, it is not protected against demolition. So structures, buildings, objects, sites, and historic districts are among those that can be designated. They can be residential or non-residential. And just a note, in Glencoe, we do not have any historic districts at this time.
All right. So many things come up when people are talking about the discussion of landmarking. A lot of people get nervous about what can I do? What can't I do? You're going to create so many rules for my home and for the future. That's not what the intentions are meant to be. It's a lot of it is just to keep the fabric and opportunity for a variety of housing stock to be available in our community. So we put together just some common questions that can come up. If I landmark my house, what changes can I make? You are still able to do your renovations. We have some case studies coming forward, which you'll see very recent examples that we've had come before the commission where there are things we do get involved with and there's things that we don't get involved with. There's opportunities for just to be a staff level. We were talking with one of the planners in the department just about what the next steps are for your building permit. And then there's an opportunity just to meet with the Preservation Commission chair and talk about what your direction is going in for your project. And then it would then decide if it would come to the commission or not for a review. People talk about the ability to do an addition, a renovation, dig out their basements, a lot of different things. There are so many resources that we can also direct you to that show you so much potential exists in these homes. There are even homes that have had very modern additions put on to a more traditional home, and you can blend it together. There's a lot of creative architects out there who are willing to work with you. Resale of a home. There's a lot of statistics from Landmarks, Illinois that show statewide in the Chicagoland area that there's a high interest in living in a community that has historic homes in it. They feel that it creates a sense of place, a sense of belonging, a sense of community, rather than just rows and rows of new construction or homes that are not contiguously available in older communities, in established communities. Okay. All right, so what actually gets reviewed? This is if you have a project that's going to come forward, you're in for a building permit, maybe or you don't know that there's a review that needs to be done, additional review. The Preservation Commission meets monthly. We are also able to meet at ad hoc as long as it's a scheduled meeting. We review items such as the front facade. If your house is a corner house, you have more visibility. So we would take a look at anything that would be visible from another side street view. A lot of people get concerned about windows. There's a lot more movement towards replacement in kind, retrofitting windows, repair to windows. A lot of people think that's the hard, fast yes, no. That's not necessarily how it is right now. The National Trust has been updating their information regularly, and the state architects will even talk to you individually about what your window situation is because they understand every house is its own. And then demolition. This would be, the most end part. We would take a look at, are you taking out an existing porch? Are you rebuilding the porch? Is there a rear addition that was never compatible with the home, but then you want to do a different project. So we would take a look at what parts would be removed if you are doing an addition to the home. Things that are not reviewed. Our commission itself, we may ask questions about like what's the intention with the addition and what's the flow. You're always willing to share that or not. But then a lot of times people update their homes for modern living, so they want to rearrange some rooms in their home. But as for the interior itself, it's not something that the Glencoe Preservation Commission has in any purview over. Your backyard, your front yard, if you're doing any flat work, whether you're allowed to live in a historic home and still have a blacktop driveway. We don't regulate any of that. The paint color of your home, you can decide that you want to put a bold color up on your house. That's totally okay. We are not there to tell you to pick this sample over that. We are there to advise, but also make sure that you are moving forward with your project as you wish.
So why would a homeowner actually choose to landmark? In our experience, we've consistently seen 5 main motivations come up, including, but not limited to, protection, legacy, incentives, investment, and community. And tonight we're going to talk about 2 of them, protection and incentives. So we're going to start with protection. And we'll break it down into 3 pieces. So the first, protection of historic and architectural values. Village ordinances provide specific legal protection for the features that make your home significant. The second is protection of your investment. Landmark status is demolition resistant at a certified level, meaning the village board would need to formally approve demolition of your home, a pattern we've seen happen to non-designated historic homes. And third, homes with historic character have real growing appeal to buyers on the North Shore. More and more buyers are actively seeking out homes with that kind of authenticity and craftsmanship rather than newer construction. As a result, landmark status tends to protect and in many cases actually increase the value of your home over time. Easements are another tool used to protect a property. We're not going to dive completely into this, but if you have questions about easements, let us know, and Erika and I can talk to you about easements afterwards. But a preservation easement actually works at a basic level. So the homeowner voluntarily grants a legal agreement, typically to a preservation organization like Landmarks Illinois, for example, and in exchange, the historic character of the home is legally protected, not just for you as the current owner, but for future owners of that property. So it runs with the land.
All right, financial incentives. The financial incentive that exists in the state of Illinois and that works also with the village of Glencoe is the Illinois property tax assessment freeze. This is an application process that you would do after your home has been certified as a landmark. If your home is independently a National Register listed home, you can bypass Glencoe and just work with the state individually. But we don't have any homes that have done that in this case in Glencoe. So the only homes that have, we're talking about a home tonight that has recently received the property tax freeze. So that will be our case study. But you have about 2 years after your construction project to apply. It's most preferred from the state that you apply once you begin your project, because a lot of it is state, they want the documentation. They like to see your receipts. They like to see your construction statements. They also like to see the before and after photos of what you're doing. Because they're based in Springfield, they don't always have opportunities to come up here. They try to do a site visit, one of the state architects, but mostly it's online and virtual and just you documenting your process. With the assessment, you get paperwork that certifies you and gets sent to Cook County. That means your assessed valuation of your home is frozen for 8 years. That's going to be a number that we will touch on in a future slide. So you still pay your property taxes, but your assessed value that number is being derived from your taxing rate is what is frozen. Then over the next 4 years, Cook County will incrementally move you to their level of what they feel that your home would be assessed at. And anything technical like that is a Cook County thing. We all know that Cook County likes to have great big numbers for what we pay in taxes, but this is an opportunity to recoup some of that based on the amount of money invested in your home. And then after those 12 years, then you will return to your full market assessed valuation, which is another Cook County number that they derive on from their assessors. One of our recently approved Glencoe zoning incentives that the commission has worked on for the past few years, the village board approved it in May. It is a pilot program which has permit fee rebates. This will help homeowners who are doing work, they recoup some money back in their project. It's going to start in January of 2027. It's going to be a first come, first serve type of program. And there's information that will be posted on the Glencoe website when that can open up in 2027. All right, now we're going to go back to those new Glencoe incentives. Yeah. So we have the reduced fees for qualifying projects. That can be something that the planning staff can talk to you about. We have zoning adjustments that we worked with the zoning commission on that allow greater use of FAR and setbacks. So we're not creating more variations for homeowners. We understand that a lot of land in Glencoe was subdivided in a future date, probably later than the home was built. So that could create a zoning difficulty for a homeowner where then every single time they want to do something in their house, they feel like, oh, now I have to go get a variation for that. So with the Preservation Commission, we took a look at some data and we found that the way that we got the zoning commission to look at our numbers we're proposing for our historic homes in Glencoe, specifically for certified landmarks and for honorary landmarks, that it'll be more favorable for them so that they're not limited by, say, an opportunity for a new construction home to be built where they can have enough land and space to build their home on their property. And then ultimately, the reduced permit fees funds, they go back towards the Preservation Commission to do future work. It's all just a big kind of umbrella underneath the village budget. Okay. Now we're going to go into specific examples in our community so you can see where we're at. And these are all very recent examples that are currently ongoing or have recently been completed. 255 Hazel, it's right in the village center. It is a certified landmark and they pursued the tax freeze. Their permit construction began in 2024. They had their architect meet with our commission to talk about the option between honorary and certified landmark based on the architect of their home. Their architect is a architect who has a lot of homes that are in the Chicagoland area, specifically the North Shore area. And when we had that meeting, we took a look at the scope of the work and realized that the work that they were doing on their home, which was a rear addition, a small rear addition, but mostly interior modeling of the home, mechanicals, electrical, plumbing. They were digging a deeper basement, and that required them to do extra utility work in their home. And that cost of construction was exceeding the minimum threshold that they would need to get the tax freeze. So we highly encouraged them to have a preliminary phone call with the state. And the homeowner reached out to the state architect. They spoke on the phone. He said, email me your part A or part 1 and part 2. Sent it in, and he gave him, the green light. Said, okay, just keep documenting your project, and then part 3 is like the last complete part of the page. So they received their certified landmark status with the village board in February 2025. They have received their approval for part 1 and part 2 of their project, and I believe they're almost done with their construction, and then part 3 would be completed, and that's just sending in the final parts of your paperwork that are required. They are a wonderful example of when you start doing a construction project, you realize how costly things come to be, and that you have an opportunity there to look at what are the other resources. And we're very thankful they came to us, and we were able to kind of work together and help them out with finding that opportunity for them. All right. So a lot of people say, well, where are you getting this number from? So here is an example of a property tax bill where this is the number that the county, Cook County, says if you were to go and sell your home and, before you meet with a realtor, this is what we would value your home at if you put it out in the real estate market listings. And then 25% of that is the minimum that you would need to spend. So everything over than this in your project would be your starting point for how much you're investing in your home to meet that threshold based on the application process. Once again, you have 2 years to do your work. They don't put you on our deadline. You may have a different permit deadline with Glencoe. Whether you pay for your half year, or your full year permit, or your 1.5 year permit, or your 1 year permit. But then they give you up to 2 years to submit everything, even after your project's done. Maybe there's more maintenance, maybe there's more things to be done. So the state architects really work well with you and give you kind of a generous amount of time. Sometimes people don't realize, they think, oh, I'm never going to meet that number. And then they still have some ongoing projects that are lingering. I've even had people come in and say, can I put all these projects together over the past few years? And I say, you got a state, and the state's been fairly generous with the timeline as well. So everything's a case-by-case basis, but it's a matter of like what they count and not count, but they have their information available on their website as well, which we'll get to. All right. 750 Glencoe Drive. Some people call this the Castle Home. This is a good case study because there's a new homeowner that came in and they just wanted the house to look their own. They wanted to refresh its exterior appearance. They were doing a lot of interior work. And this is a home where they repainted their entire exterior of their home. That did not require the Preservation Commission review. They did come to the commission, though, because they had an existing fence and they needed to talk to us about the fence. They had a chain link fence, and then they had an aluminum rail fence, and they wanted a complete look that fit with their Victorian style of their home. So they came in with their fence permit brochure, which had a Victorian style fence on it. And then we met with them, reviewed it, and discussed it, and they went forward with their approval. And at the permit level, that was just a fence permit. So it's not like they had to come back and forth. We had kind of a quick discussion, and we really try to work well with homeowners and getting on our agenda right away. So we're not holding anyone up for getting a fence, especially if they have dogs or children. Okay. Next case study. This is another recent landmark. This is 80th State Drive. This is something you would call like a preservation success story. It was landmarked in 2023. The actual family that lived there, the owners had passed away. They built the house for themselves. They raised their family there. And it was the grandson who was the one that pursued the landmark designation. They did use a consultant for the home to help write up their designation because they wanted so much detail from the home based on its architectural style included. They met with the commission to go over the landmark designation, and right after they landmarked their home, they did put the house for sale on the market, knowing that it was protected from demolition. So they did have that plan in place to meet with us. We knew that no one was living in the house at the time, that the grandson was being the person bringing this forward, and it was landmarked prior to going up on the market for a sale. The new homeowners bought the home because it was a landmark. They were very excited. They were already Glencoe homeowners. They chose this home that fit with their future lifestyle. And they came in with their own architect and their plans for the home to make it more their own. So the commission worked with them at, I would say, 3 different levels. They worked with the staff in the planning department. They worked with the chair of the commission to talk about the steps that they wanted to take, and also what was required to go to the commission and what was can be done just at staff level with the chair of the commission. And then there was some things that they had to go to the full commission for review. Now, that was with the interior and exterior of their home. They did landmark some things on the interior, which is more unique. But because of the modern style of the home, it was part of their landmarking application itself. And it's still being beautified. But if you happen to be in that neighborhood, you can go take a look. Okay. Next is, how do we get started?
Okay, so how do we get started? So if you're thinking about landmarking your home, first start with some research and a question. Is my home significant? Can it be landmarked? At what level? From there, a great first stop is the historic Glencoe story map, which we talked about. It's that interactive online tool. It can be it's accessible through the Preservation Commission's landing page on the village website. It can be sorted and filtered a million different ways and contains a ton of amazing information that's been accumulated over the years. You can also pull building permits through Village Hall, and permits records often reveal a surprising amount about a home's history, including past renovations and additions you might not have known about. Often the village has the original permit as well, which documents the architect, the owner, the builder, and the date of construction. An internet search by your home's architect, if you know it, or by its architectural style can also turn up useful background information. Hunting down newspaper articles from around the date of construction, or even Ancestry.com for relevant information on ownership. And at any point along this path, you can reach out to the Preservation Commission. You don't have to have a ton of research done. You can come to us at any point. And actually, we would love to talk to you earlier in the process rather than later.
Okay, so research resources. Once again, the Glencoe story map, Argus, that is the state architectural research GIS system. It kind of pulls from a bunch of different databases, almost like a library search, and it's very technical, but you can get a lot of information about architects and do a very deep technical dive. The State Historic Preservation Office, specifically, there's information there. It says certified local governments underneath it. Glencoe is not considered certified local government, but we are in their review of everything. There's just like a different, I guess you could say, like threshold from them, but they work very well with our planning staff. They worked well with our commission, and they are a great resource. They have many architects on staff that if you call them, they answer the phone. They truly do. So they are another research if you have questions more about the application process. And then always our Glencoe Village website. Okay, the next is landmarking roadmap. So this is something that we put together. I feel like with the ups and downs, that's probably how people feel about everything these days. So it's just kind of just breaking it down even more literal, the step-by-steps. We always encourage you to call the village. You can start speaking with the planning staff first. You also might be directed to speak directly with the chair of the commission, Peter Van Beckton, who's here tonight. He's a great person that has a lot of information and definitely welcomes you to start with him as well. Next would be research, whether you've done it on your own or you need assistance. We would try to find the best match for you. If you are doing a project that includes a building permit, that's where you would meet with the planning staff. So they would be the ones that would talk you through what the building permit process is. Starting in 2027, you would have all the incentives available. They would talk you through any zoning. If you need, the additional zoning relief opportunities for your home, or if you're looking at a project that would qualify for that rebate, preservation rebate. And then also there's the nomination form, the paperwork. Our paperwork's pretty simple. It's about a page. We would work with you to make sure we can collect all the information we can. We do a little bit on our commission side of it, just amongst ourselves to see if we have any information about the home or know anything. And then it would be going before the commission meeting. Sometimes there's plans that accompany the application that we would review as well. And we would hold the meeting when you are able to attend and when we have, the next available agenda to come up. And then after the commission reviews it and approves it, it then goes on to the village board, and then they give the final approval. And that is where they would have the ordinance drafted, which would be individually to your home and its PIN numbers associated with the home. And then after that, you become a landmark, and we have a beautiful plaque that you can have either resting inside your home or on your home. All right. And then this is the application process with the Illinois State Historic Preservation Office, the SHPO. The first thing with that is the research. So you can go back and look at the Cook County Assessor's website. You can look at that number that we had on the earlier slide. If you're looking at doing the freeze opportunity, then it would be the application. Part 1 is very simple. It's mostly your contact information for their application. And part 2 is kind of description of your project room by room in your home of what you plan to do. And they like the before photos. They don't need the physical photos. They actually just, digital photos are perfect for them. And then if you have any plans, they would like to take a look at those as well. And that's all done just by email. You could also mail your plans to them as well. And then step 3, that's the final phase when all construction is completed. And that will be your expenses, receipts, and any final paperwork that you submit for part 3. And that would be the remainder of your photos of your construction project.
Before we open it up to questions, just wanted to leave you with this concrete list of resources. So we're going to leave this up for just a moment. If you want to take a picture of it, might be easier than writing things down. But if you are interested in becoming a landmark, you can talk to us. But also Adam Hall is our staff liaison to the Preservation Commission, and he is a great contact also to kickstart the conversation.
Great, well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Great. Have a great evening.